Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be building this spray paint tracer thing. So when you press spacebar and you move your mouse, it will spray paint and then trace around following the mouse. So let's, you can actually like write your own name and stuff. It's a lot of fun. So let's build it. So I'm going to head over to REPL and I'm going to create a brand new REPL project. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I'll call it Spray Paint Tracer. I'll create the REPL. I'm going to keep open this one, which I designed before, just so I have in mind what I'm aiming for. And then I'll have this one set up over here, and I'm going to load it up just so that we can see it like normal. All right, so let's pop over to the index for this project. I know a lot of you guys have had your REPLs update with the new font colors, but I haven't for some reason, so it'll look a little different probably on yours. So we're going to make one element on the page that allows us to draw, which is the canvas element. We'll give it a specific height and a specific width, so I'm going to go with I left off the quotes. I'm going to go with 800 and 600 like I usually do, but you could do whatever you wanted. I'm going to head over to the style. I'd like to make it so that we can actually see our canvas. So in order to do that, I'll turn the entire web page to have a black background by selecting the body element. Sorry, when my computer's lagging from the video, it makes it really hard to code. But we'll have a black background. And then the canvas element will have a purple border. And it will also be centered using the same technique that we'd used to center the picture, which is display block margin auto. So now, when we refresh our screen here, it should match. Oh no, I got the height and width backwards. That's silly. All right, so let me go over to here. Height is 600, and width is 800. Oops. Although this would be cool if you were designing like a Tetris game, perhaps. OK, now we've got this correct. All right, so let's see. Let's go over to our JavaScript. We're going to be interacting with the canvas element. So select the elements we are going to be interacting with. So I'll say let canvas equal document.querySelector canvas. Then next up, in order to draw on the canvas, we have to get the context, which is the set of tools that we've been using to draw on the canvas. So what we'll do is we'll say let Ctx, which is an abbreviation for context without some of the letters, equal canvas.getContext 2D. Hey guys, I'm actually recording a video. You're welcome to be in here, but sorry, it's okay. All right, so I'll have the context selected, which is all the set of tools that will allow us to draw on the canvas. And then so continuing on here, what we'll do is we will set up a couple of functions. So we know that in order to draw on the canvas, we like to erase everything by drawing our background. So I'll create a function called drawBackground. And let me switch things up here a little bit from how I made it in the other one. Let me make it so that when we draw the background, it will make it like a chalkboard maybe, and it will be like dark green. So I'll do ctx.fillStyle equals dark green. I don't know if that's actually a color, but we'll see if it is. Then we'll do ctx.beginPath. And we're going to make that a function with the parentheses. And then we'll do ctx.fillRect, which is a built-in function of the context. We want to draw a rectangle from the point x and y as 0, 0, which is the top left corner, all the way to the width and the height values, so it covers the entire background here. And then the thing I'm always forgetting as I'm coding is that we have to do Ctx Fill. I'm not actually sure if we have to do that on this one, because it looks like the command here is fill rect. But just to be safe, Ctx Fill will end our shape and draw it. So let me just quickly call the draw background function here and see if it works. OK. I think that my computer is lagging out because when you call a function, when you say do the draw background function, you always have to include the parentheses. So it should work now. All right, cool. So we've got our green background. All right, let's see. I'm going to imagine that when we draw it, it will make those little explosions like that. But instead, let's make them white for this chalkboard style background. We can always change the colors later. So whenever we have images changing on our canvas, we have this idea of a set interval loop, which is a loop that repeats over time. And really what we want to do when we have our set interval loop is we want to define, just like I was saying, sorry, I was doing a transition to the next thought, but I didn't write what I was saying as I was saying it. We're going to define a function here that will run repeatedly over time. So maybe every 10 milliseconds. And that function is going to be kind of the same thing that we've been doing, which is draw background. And then on top of it, draw the circles. Update the circles with their new values. And then draw the background, draw the circles, update the circles. Draw the background, update, or draw the circles, update the circles. So I'm going to move this draw background command into the set interval loop using a cut and paste command X, command V. Now what we want to do is we want to draw a series of circles, it looks like. It's not just one circle. So I'm going to create a list of these circles here. So I'm going to say, in your memory computer, store a list of bubbles, or circles, whatever you want to call them. And it's going to start off being an empty list. Since I want to draw all of these bubbles, I'm going to create a function called draw bubbles. And I guess when I'm thinking about these bubbles, I need to think about what values do I need to actually specify to draw a bubble. So every bubble is going to have a different x and y coordinate. You can see that here. The computer is lagging a lot right now. It looks a lot smoother when I'm not recording the video. And it's also going to have a radius that changes. So perhaps a model for our bubbles should be, I guess we're thinking about them as each bubble will be x, y, and radius. So x, y in the center, and then I'll start with a radius of 10. This will be my test bubble, just to make sure that things are working. So to draw a bubble, we'll set the context fill style using camel case. This is an uppercase S in JavaScript to white. Then we'll begin a path. Then we'll do ctx.arc. And we're going to want to plug in information from the bubble. So because this function needs to access this information, we'll say that in order to run this function, the program needs to input in which bubble it's drawing. So now the x-coordinate of the bubble is the 0th value. So we'll say go to the bubble 0th position. That will be the x-coordinate of our arc. The bubble first position will be the y-coordinate of our arc. The bubble second position will be the radius of our arc. And then the arc also requires these angle measurements, which for a full circle will be 0 to 2 times math.pi. Okay, so x, y, r, start angle, end angle, and then I need the parentheses at the end to make those match up. So they do, awesome. And then we'll do ctx.fill. All right, so let's make sure that our draw bubbles function is working. Inside of our set interval loop, I'll say go to the bubbles list. And we want to go through that bubble group by bubble group. So we'll say for each member of the group, in this case, there's only one smaller list inside of this bigger list of bubbles. Take each bubble, and then what we want to do is we want to draw that bubble. I'm going to change this to draw bubble because it's not drawing multiple bubbles. So we'll draw the bubble for whichever bubble we're currently on. So this should draw our bubble here. Let's see if it works. Oh no, sorry. This should draw our bubble here. Let's see if it works. Awesome, it does. Okay, so basically, the next thing that we need to do is we need to have our bubbles update. So let's see how our bubbles could update. Well, I think what's happening in this program that I've designed here is that as the bubbles have existed for longer and longer periods of time, it's so bad when it's laggy, I'm sorry. It looks like the radiuses grow. Let me just do one bubble here. It grows and then shrinks. So it looks like that bubble is going to have to keep track of whether it's growing or whether it's shrinking. So I'm going to add a fourth value here, which will be a number, which will be how much it's growing by. So I'll call this, I don't know, it's common to say that this would be like delta R, which is the change in R, so you could call it delta R, but I'm just going to call it the R speed in my mind. All right, so when we update a bubble, basically the bubble doesn't move. It stays where it is. The only thing that changes is the radius will grow by the speed that it's growing at. So what we'll say here is that the bubble in the second position, the radius, should be equal to the old bubble radius, the second position again, plus the radius speed, which is this value here. Oops, and it's not R speed. Oh my god, why was it? It's bubble third position to get this R speed value. All right, so let's just do a quick run of this to make sure it's working. So I'm going to draw the background. I'm going to update the bubbles. And then I'm going to draw the bubbles. So we should see a bubble that grows here. Awesome. Now at a certain point, we want our bubble to start shrinking, otherwise it gets too big. So to make our bubble shrink, we have to modify our update bubble function. So what we could say is if the radius of our bubble, which is the second position, if bubble 2 grows bigger than a certain value, let's say 40, I don't know what the right value is, then what we want to do is we want to make the speed a negative number so that the radius starts to shrink. So let's see, bubble 3, that's where the speed is, 0, 1, 2, 3, should then equal -1. So it grows and then shrinks. Grows and then shrinks. Super cool. All right. So we'll notice that this is actually causing an error. I'm not too worried about the error, sorry, because we're going to take care of that in a second. Oh, maybe it's not causing an error. Oh, there it is. Yeah, sweet. The radius provided is negative. Well, that error makes a lot of sense, right? It's trying to graph a circle with a negative radius. So I know that we'll have to solve that error as well. So yeah, why don't we solve that error right now? So I guess what we could have here is, let me update our bubbles list to include some more bubbles. So now we'll have 3 bubbles. Let me just change the values of these a little bit. I'm going to make this one start off with a bigger radius. I'll make this one start off with no radius. No, I want it to start off with a radius, so let me do a medium radius. And this one like a super big radius. Oh no, that will not work. Super big radius, medium, 20, okay. So let's just see how it looks. So we've got our 3 bubbles, and then eventually we start to run into this error once the radiuses become negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to momentarily tell it to forget about updating the bubbles. So let me do a refresh here. All right, the console should be cleared out because I don't really have those errors anymore. Because we're not updating the bubbles, we never run into this problem right now with the negative bubbles. So in order to address this issue with the negative bubbles, I think the easiest way to think about it is once the radius becomes negative, I'd like to get rid of that bubble. So to do that, what we can do is we can say here, actually, no, let me just do this here. This might be the part where I have to cheat. Let's see if I have to cheat. Okay, so we can write our bubbles list here. Sorry, my computer is so laggy. It's super frustrating. Bubbles. And we'll see that our bubbles list is an array here with 3 different bubbles in it. This is the x, y, r, and speed r values. So let's see. I would like to do a function called filter. And what that will do is it will allow me to filter out certain values from this list. So in this case, maybe I want only the bubbles that have a radius bigger than 10 to stay. So I think that should leave me with bubble 1 and bubble 2, and then get rid of this one. So I'm going to filter that out. And this is the part that I have a hard time remembering. I think I have to write an arrow function here, which is to take the bubble that we're currently on. And the thing that we want to do is we want to keep it if the bubble has a radius, which would be the second position, greater than 10. So let me see if that works. So what this does is it creates a new list of the bubbles that have a radius bigger than 10. So where this will be really useful is every time I go through the loop, I'm going to filter it so that I only have bubbles with a positive radius. And that way I never run into a problem of trying to graph a bubble with a negative radius. So what I'll do to do that is, after we do this for all of the bubbles, I'll say go into the bubble list, which is bubbles, and filter the list so that I'm left only with those that have a radius, which is 0, 1, 2, the second position. Oops, sorry. I have to do the arrow function. Go into the list, take each bubble, and take out only those that have a radius that's greater than 0. And you can look up this filter function. It's really powerful. It allows you to compress down lists so that you have specific things. So like on your phone, when you search for somebody in your contact list, it will filter only the ones that match the first letter. Say your function would look a little different. It would look to see strings that match the first letter of that person's name. And then it would filter that list and give it to you as a possible contact you were searching for. But in this case, we're filtering out the bubbles, or filtering it so that we only have the bubbles that have a radius bigger than 0. And I want to make this my bubbles list. So I'll say the bubbles list is go to the old bubbles list and select only the bubbles that have a radius bigger than 0. So let's see if this works to get rid of that error message that we were encountering. So now if I type in bubbles here, you'll notice that now my bubbles list is empty and it's no longer giving us errors because it's not even trying to draw the bubbles that have a negative radius. It filtered it so that we are only left with the positive ones, which was eventually nothing. At the beginning though, oh man, I'm not fast enough. At the beginning, you'll see that the bubbles list has items in it. And then later on, once they have a negative radius, it filters them out. All right, so then the last thing that's left is to actually draw the bubbles. So let's delete all of these test bubbles from our screen here. I think what I'd like to do to draw the bubbles is I'd like to make it so that every time I move my mouse over this, it records my new mouse position and then draws a bubble at the position of the mouse. So to do that, that's going to be an event listener. So I'm going to create an event listener for the canvas, which will listen for some interaction from the keyboard or mouse. So I'll say, take the canvas element, which we selected in our first line of code here. Let's add an event listener to it. And it will be a mouse move event, which is a new event type for us. And whenever our mouse moves, we'll run a function like that. Cool. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see where it actually has the line breaks. So we're defining a code block that will run whenever our mouse moves. Now, the movement of the mouse is an event, and we need to pull information from where the mouse moved. So what we're going to do is we are going to pass into our function the event object. And I'm just going to do a console.log for the event object. So what we can see here is that every time the mouse moves, it creates an event object and logs it to our console. So I need to pick out from this some important information, which is where should I draw the circle? And so kind of I've studied this before, and let's see. I think what we want is we want these offset x and offset y. These are the relative coordinates. So if I'm here, if I move here, it will be 0, 0. If I move here, it will be 0 for x, 600 for y. So we'll use the offset ones, which are relative to the element I'm moving over. How large of a displacement from the origin is the mouse at? So what I'm going to say is let x equal the event dot offset x. So this will go into the event object and take out that value. Let y equal go into this event object, which is this collection of information, and take out from that the offset y. I'm going to let the radius start at 0. And I'm going to let the speed, the r speed, start at 1 for all of my bubbles. Then I'm going to create the bubble itself. So I'm going to say let the bubble equal x, y, r, and r speed. And this should plug in these values, the position of the thing, and then the radius, and then the r speed, the position of the cursor. And this will be the position of the bubble, the radius of the bubble to start, and then how fast the radius grows by. And now in order for this bubble to actually register, I need to say take the bubbles list, which is this empty list now, where we had our example bubbles before. And the command to put something in that list is push. So we're going to push the bubble that we just created, this information, into the list. So let's see how that works. OK, let me get rid of the console.log here. I'll do a comment out. All right, so let me just see how this is looking. I actually don't like this white color. For me, it doesn't look like a chalkboard. I'm going to change these to the original colors that I had of black and red. So here we go. I'll refresh that. Oop. Refresh that. And now we've got the black and red. I'm just going to let it go for a little while because it looks like it's doing a pretty good job of it. The lag is a little bit rough. The next thing is that I'd like to only do this when I have when I'm holding down the spacebar button. So I'm going to create a variable here, which is let's drawable, let drawing. This will keep track of whether I'm drawing, and I'll start off not drawing. Then what I'll do is I'll say I'd like to, whenever I push the spacebar, change this to actually being allowed to draw. So I'll say my window should be listening for a key down event, which is when I press a keyboard key, like pressing the keyboard spacebar. And that will allow me to say that whenever somebody pushes a key down, I'm going to pass in information about the event that happened, which key was pressed, which is the event object again. This time, because it's a keyboard event, we're pressing a key down, it will have a different list of things here when we look at it. And I'm going to say console.log the event. So let me do a refresh here. Refresh here. And then when I push space or I push A, you'll see that it actually creates an event object, keeping track of that event with different information. So I only want to do this for spaces, and I see that space has an interesting code here, which is space. So what I'm going to say is if you go into the event object and the code is uppercase space, then what I'd like to do is I'd like to say make drawing allowed. I'd like to set drawing to true. I'm going to copy and paste this function. And I'm going to say, OK, window.addEventListener, key up. So now if I take my finger off the key, the spacebar key, I'd like to disable drawing. So in this case, I'm going to keep everything the same, but I'm going to say if the key up has a key code of space, then make drawing false so that it doesn't draw. I'm going to momentarily comment out these event console logs to clean things up a little bit. So we should see that oh wait, I forgot to do something. It's still drawing no matter what. I'm not pressing spacebar. So the last part here is we need to say, for this mouse move thing, we really only want to do this stuff if drawing is true. So I'm going to cut with Command X this information, and I'm going to say if drawing is true, if drawing is enabled, then I would like to gather this information and create the bubble. And what this will do is it will basically is keeping track. Drawing is only true when we have the spacebar down. When we take our finger off the spacebar, it will make drawing false again. And so this will only draw if we're holding down the spacebar. So here it doesn't draw, but then when I hold down the spacebar, it does draw. And then if I let go of the spacebar, it stops drawing. So I think there's some more that you can play around with here, like how do you get the circles, and I did this in this example, how do you get the circles to be a little bit further apart from each other, because I liked that effect. But I think this video has gone on a little bit too far. There's a little bit too long. There's a lot of other possibilities for how you might modify this code, and I can definitely help you out with anything that you're interested in doing. Hopefully you find this interesting, because I really enjoyed the outcome of this project. It was kind of cool to create. See you guys in class. Bye.